What's going on, everybody? All right, I'm going to show you how I refinish a guitar, starting off with sanding the body. Now, I do want to make this very apparent. If there's any sort of chipping, cracking, or any other imperfections in the guitar, you are most definitely going to want to try to sand this down flatter, especially if you have big chips or cracks. If the paint is in good condition, you should just be able to go ahead and sand it flat and then paint over this. I'm using 240 grit sandpaper on my palm sander or my DA, whatever you want to call that. You just go over the guitar. If it's nice and flat, like I said, you should just be able to go ahead and sand this flat. Basically, you're scuffing the existing paint and then you're going to paint over that. Once I get to the sides, I take the pad off of the palm sander and I just go to town and make sure that I get into all the crevices, nooks, and crannies, because I want to make sure that I have good adhesion points on all points of this guitar. After I'm done sanding it, I am going to take a microfiber cloth and some rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle and just spray the guitar down with the rubbing alcohol, making sure I get all the dust. You can use a tack rag too, which probably I would say you could probably do the tack rag first and then wipe it off with the rubbing alcohol. Once you have this all cleaned off, you can go ahead and tape up the neck pocket. Now, I would say tape off the neck pocket. For the most part, you just want to make sure that you are at least covering the majority of the neck pocket. I do go through here and I kind of, I guess I would say bevel the edge. So this way there's a slight little break so the tape doesn't stick to the paint and the body on the actual body itself. I'll show you a little close up here in a second. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking a block with some sandpaper. I think this is 120 grit. You could probably go a little bit finer than this. Honestly, you could probably do something like 240 or 320. And basically all that's doing is it's just kind of creating a little edge to where the paint won't necessarily stick to like the flat surface of the body. I don't really know how else to explain that, but basically I just want to create like a little area in between where the body and the new paint is going to be and where the kind of neck sits in. So I'm going to hang this from the horn, basically just taking an extra screw and screwing it into the strap lock button area. And then once you're done that, go ahead and hang this up. And then what I would recommend is probably I would tack rag it or at least wipe it off with a microfiber cloth again, just to make sure that there's nothing hanging on there. And then you can go to town. I'm using a black primer, basically just doing a really light tack coat right now. Just trying to get a little bit of primer all over the body to make sure that it has a little bit of time to kind of cure. So this way my next coat of primer will be a little bit thicker. Let that coat of primer sit for at least a good 5 to 10 minutes and then go ahead and do a second coat and then let that cure. After you let the primer cure, you can then go ahead and sand this flat. So you're going to kind of do this just to give more adhesion point to the actual paint itself. I believe what I'm probably using on this right now is either 400 or 600 grit. You don't want to go too heavy or too coarse with the sandpaper because you don't want to have big scratch marks coming through the paint when you're done after you've clear coated it and stuff, because you'll notice that. So I would recommend probably like a minimum of 400 grit. After you have primed the body, go ahead and let that cure for at least a minimum of 2 to 3 hours. If you can let it cure longer for about 24 hours, I think that's probably better. But if you are in a rush, I would say minimum probably 3 hours just to let that cure and settle down. The longer you let it cure, the harder it will get and the easier it will be to sand. So take that into consideration. Once you have sanded the top and the back side flat, you then go ahead and take that disc off of your palm sander and just get the sides again. You might have a little bit of paint of the old paint break through. I wasn't necessarily too concerned with that. Just as long as the majority of the paint or the majority of the body is still black, I think that's going to be good, especially for the color that I'm using. It is a dark red pearl. It's actually a Automotive color. It's a Hyundai color called Red Velvet Pearl. So long story short, I bought this paint a while ago to do some test samples because I plan on possibly repainting my car. I had this aerosol can left over and I figured it would be pretty nice on the P base. So a nice red body, gold hardware, and a nice pearloid pickguard. So basically you're just going to do a bunch of coats. I would say do lighter coats at first just to make sure that you're not going over, especially with a pearl. If you apply too much too quickly or if you get too close, you can actually kind of make it blotchy looking. So take that into consideration as well. I would say just do lighter coats at first. You're going to go ahead and keep applying that. And basically I used the entire can because of what was left in it. I don't think it was more than probably 3 or 4 coats tops. So just go ahead and use the entire can. Wait about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, depending on the temperature. If it's warmer outside, you might be able to get away with 10 to 15 minutes. If it's colder outside, you probably want to wait at least 20 to 30 minutes possibly. It really depends on how cold it is. But just give it a little bit of time in between each coat. All right, so once you've applied all of your color and you have let that cure for a little bit, you can go ahead and pop your can of 2K clear coat. Again, I am using custom cans. I like their stuff. It's pretty inexpensive and it actually is a very nice product. So take the gray cap off the bottom. Go ahead and take that ring out. You're going to thread that through the little nozzle or the little nipple on the bottom. Once you're ready to clear coat, don't do this beforehand because this will harden and cure in the can if you do it before. I mean, obviously, if you're painting the same day and you know that you're going to be able to get to the clear coat, go ahead and crack that open. And once you've applied like your last coat of color, once you thread that ring through the bottom, you're just going to pull it all the way out. And what I normally do is I just keep rotating the can until it spins really free. You'll know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and shake the can up for at least a minimum of 2 minutes and then go to town. As far as applying the clear coat goes, just make sure you're not doing too much too quickly and you're not spraying too heavily. I try to lay down nice, even, flat coats, but I kind of try to sweep as fast as I possibly can just to make sure that I'm not getting any runs. It's a little bit harder outside. Obviously, I don't have like an indoor shooting booth or like an indoor shooting area. So I have to unfortunately do all this stuff outside in the wind and in the elements. But I generally try to do the front and the back first, and then I go to the sides, or you can do the sides first and then go front to back. It's entirely up to you. Obviously, like I said, just don't apply too much too quickly and try not to apply too much all at once because you don't want this to run. Because it's a gloss clear coat, I would say that runs necessarily aren't like a huge deal because you're going to cut and buff this anyways. But if you just want to do it all in one pass without getting a bunch of runs and stuff in it, just make sure that you're doing nice light coats at first. After you've applied all of your clear coat, and basically I would say you would get at least a minimum of 3 to possibly 4 coats out of one can. In between each coat, like I said earlier, it will depend on how hot or cold it is. For warmer weather, probably 10 to 15 minutes. For cooler weather, I would say give it probably a roughly about 20 to 30 minutes in between each coat. And then after about an hour or so, this should be cured enough that you can actually pick it up and handle it without like indenting it. Depending if it's colder outside, you might want to let it hang a little bit longer. All right, and this is going to be the hardest part for everybody. I would highly recommend, and this is just from my own personal experience painting, I don't know, probably several guitars with custom can stuff. Let it cure for a minimum of 3 weeks. I know that's hard for some people to do, especially because you want to, get it done and you want to put it all back together and stuff. In my honest opinion, the longer you let this cure, especially with their aerosol clear coat cans, the harder that will become and the less chance you're going to have to where the paint will actually like smush out around like the hardware and stuff. Because I've had that happen to me a couple of times now and it really sucks. And basically once that paint smushes out, it's kind of hard to cut that down and make it flat again. You'll have like some weird indents and stuff where the hardware sits, and you'll notice that in your final product. So I say a minimum of 3 weeks. You could probably do 2 weeks. I do think that on their website they have something in their TDS sheet that says that, or you can use like infrared light or like UV light to let this cure or make it cure faster. I don't do that. So I just let it cure for 3 weeks. I try not to get antsy and just, let the magic happen. Anyways, as far as cutting and buffing goes, I'm going from 1200 grit to 2000 grit. So for my palm sander, that's those are the only grits that I really kind of have. I was going to go 15 to 200 or 15 to 2000, but I didn't have 1500. It was just 1200 and 2000. So I cut this with 1200 at first, just trying to get it as flat as possible. I had some weird stuff going on the back, so I tried to cut that flatter a couple of times. But anyways, 1200 to 2000 grit. And then the sides were actually pretty decent, so I didn't have to cut those. It was just the front and the back. Once you have cut it flat and you didn't actually cut through to the paint, so obviously you want to make sure that you're not sanding it so much that you're cutting through and hitting paint, because that's not a good thing. So I use Meguiar's Pro Speed compound. Their 100 is a cutting grit. Basically what that does is it just buffs out all the scratches from anything 1200 and up. So I have a little 3-inch drill accessory buffing kit. It's a lot easier to use that. I originally started with a 5-inch and then I downgraded to the 3, and I much like the 3 a lot better, especially on smaller guitar bodies. I use the wool pad, and from everything that I've learned, the wool pad actually helps to cut the scratches out a lot easier. So don't use the foam pads. So use the wool pad to cut it with the 100 compound, and then use a foam pad for the 200 compound. You're going to want to keep kind of going over it and just looking out at an angle to make sure that you're getting all the buffs and scratches out. And then once you are done with the wool pad and the 100 Pro Speed Cut compound, you then go to the 200 and the foam pad, and the foam pad basically just polishes everything out. This is probably the best and the most fun step, is getting to the foam pad and the 200 polishing compound. So basically you're just going to do the same thing. You're just going to keep going over it until it's nice and shiny, and then when you are done, it should look something like this. And once you have cut and buff, you can then go ahead and reassemble. So I originally painted over the factory like noise canceling paint, or whatever you want to call that, I forget what it was. But anyways, so I went ahead and put some foil tape in there just to make sure that I didn't get any sort of hums or anything. Make sure that I line that all out. And then basically, like I said, you can go ahead and reassemble. The P-base is pretty easy. Basically, everything just kind of falls back into place. I didn't really have to do a whole lot, especially with like having to re-drill anything or whatever. But basically, just slapped it all back together and put some new strings on it. And this is what she looks like. So I really like that red with the gold hardware and the pearloid pickguard. I think it looks pretty snazzy. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like this video, also give it a thumbs up. Hopefully this video helped you guys, especially for those who are looking to repaint their guitar and have never really done it before and just needed a little bit of extra guidance. Hopefully that helped. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, also give it a thumbs up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons. I'm Jordan, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.